we are, ladies and gentlemen, on Antigua Shipyard at the bottom of the map. We have the Protoss player in red from Team Slayers. He won the first game, lost the second to his opponent. It is
Slayers Alicia.
There he is.
He's really a nice guy. I talked to him at the Code A qualifier. I mentioned it before. He's really a really nice person. And I have to say that he seems a little bit nervous before that match. I would be if I was him.
And this is the guy that not too long ago was in the finals.
I'm Alicia.
There he is, down in Code A, fighting to stay alive, fighting to get back into Code S, where he has been for many seasons now.
Yeah, Alicia was struggling a little bit on Belcher Beach, the first map. On the second map, he did a really good job in the early stages of the game. He was able to deal with every threat of his opponent quite well, but he should have taken a little bit earlier. It was a very close call. He was able to take the game, and with a very smart move that run by with a half of his army, or let's say a third of his army, to take down Alicia's economy was what won him the game.
Yep.
But with an early attack, he would have been in much of a better position, and would probably, I would have lost about 5 years playing that game again, to be honest with you. I mean, that last encounter, that looked so close.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, the counterattack is a key strategy for any Zerg player, and was effective also because of the early game control by Lucira. Alicia took a long time to get control of that third. He didn't have the economy to really get a lot of cannons or anything like that.
And talking about cannons, Lucira actually going for the hatch first, following up with a spawning pool right away, and 2 drones are chasing down that probe because Lucira is aware of that possibility of cannons. He knows that on Antigua Shipyard most Protoss players go for the forge first, and he needs to make absolutely sure that there is no cannon in the vicinity of his hatchery, or he might lose that game right then and there. But able to deal with that threat.
Yes, indeed. And Lucira able to get a little bit of an advantage, I guess, because Alicia scouted him a little bit later and ended up going for the forge before his Nexus, so he couldn't go for the Nexus first, even though he hatch firsted. Would have been, if Alicia had what he wanted, he probably would have wanted to get the Nexus first if he was going to see the hatch first. But anyway, just a small little thing. And so Lucira is going to get his economy thriving very quickly, able to get that hatchery down first, and starting to get some queens out as well.
And a lot of Protoss players, by the way, start with that wall in at the bottom of their main base ramp and not at the very huge ramp, because it's quite hard to wall off if your opponent goes for an early pool. The distances on Antigua Shipyard are fairly huge, so most Zerg players don't risk that, especially with the cross position on the GSL map that we've seen right now. But that's always kind of a gamble, because early pool is really hard to defend against if you try to wall off the big choke. And once again, as on the second map, we have Lucira going straight for 3 hatches.
Yeah, straight away for that third hatch. Just now getting his gas after his third hatchery. Really going heavy on the econ early on. And you know, it's something that you can, if you know that Protoss is forge expanded and they're trying to get their tech going, they're trying to get their economy going, they're not going to be attacking you very soon. So you can get away with that. I like the Zerglings scouting around for hidden pylons, running around.
We have a Stargate follow-up by Alicia this time. Swing for the more standard play. One Overlord, obviously, just checking out what exactly is happening at Alicia's main base. And the Zerg player is happy to just drone up. He will get a couple of queens, will probably spread the creep between his second base and his third in order to be able to assist with queens if there's a Void Ray attacking. And he definitely needs to do that, because I expect that Alicia is going for at least 1 Void Ray, following that up with 2 Phoenixes, and then starts to pick off queens.
And that Zergling,
doesn't see it.
Oh, if he'd run up and sacrificed himself, he would have seen the Stargate, but instead, Lucira is still not aware of that Stargate. He did not see it with his Overlord, he did not see it with the Zergling.
Oh, Roach Lord straight away, as well as an Evolution Chamber.
Evo Chamber is definitely going to help against the air tech that's coming out. Void Ray is now being produced. And it's always a handy thing to get that Evo Chamber about this time, or maybe even earlier, just in case. I mean, it's good to get. I remember in the finals between Nesty and Why am I forgetting the Protoss? Was that Annie Pro? Who was that? My memory is failing me. You guys can tweet me and let me know. Anyway, Nesty every single time got an Evo Chamber and got Spores just in case, because then you're safe against DTs and you're safe against air. It's just a handy thing to have around, and he now sees that it's in fact a Void Ray.
And there's no Phoenix follow-up. There's a second Void Ray coming, accompanying the first one. And we have 3 Spores, so the Evolution Chamber that Moltrip just pointed out is already quite handy for the Zerg play. He's getting a bunch of roaches in order to deal with incoming threats from the ground, getting the +1 attack upgrade, additional Queens to deal with the threat from the air units. And look at that, Alicia is basically doing exactly the same build that he did last game. He's already trying to place down that pylon and getting the 3rd Void Ray. I'm not too sure if that's going to work this time, because you already pointed it out, we have roaches.
Yeah, this definitely reminds me a lot of Game 1, although Lucira is doing a much different strategy, so now he has, like you said, the roaches out to deal with the Zealots that might accompany these Void Rays.
I really like that we have a lot of pylons. We have 1 pylon at the main base, and he's warping in units at the main base, and at the 3rd at the same time. There's 1 Spine Crawler. Those Zealots are already dead, but in the main base there should be... There was another warp in. There we go. The 1 pylon gets taken out, but here are the rest of the Zerglings and the 2 Void Rays. I still don't think that Alicia will be able to deal all too much damage to the Zerg player with that.
He is actually waiting with those Zealots, waiting for another warp in.
Oh, nice!
Oh, no.
Nice! Getting the sentry.
Oh, and there's the extra warp in, and the sentry.
Oh, God.
Force fields the ramp. He needs to protect that sentry,
though.
though.
God.
Oh, the Void Ray's coming in. He doesn't lose that one. He's targeting down the Spores with the Zealots, so the Void Rays can deal the damage.
Drones fighting, surrounding the sentries, and that will allow him to stream to the main base. Look at that. Hero drones right there. Oh my God,
wow.
Lucira able to take out both sentries and will finally be able to defend his main base. Oh, Alicia, that shouldn't have happened.
And is he going to lose the Void Rays? Almost. Oh man, 3 hit points on that Void Ray.
13 drones have been killed, but Lucira is still ahead in supply. 93 against 74. There are Lings in the main base of Alicia, and God, I don't know. I mean, it was a beautiful move by Lucira to use his drones to surround the sentries and kill them, but Alicia should have been aware of that, because those sentries are the key moment to that strategy. That's a similar strategy as we've seen some players do on Shakira's Plateau, for example, where they follow up, they start with Phoenixes, they get a Warp Prison, fly into the opponent's main base, clear out every Overlord first so that there's no scouting, and then warp in sentries in order to block the ramp. That's kind of similar. You try to want to get to your opponent's main base, block the ramp, kill everything, but those sentries are the key unit and you have to be careful with them.
Yeah, he lost those sentries very quickly, wasn't able to make full use of them, and because Lucira could reinforce, his main didn't lose a ton. Now, looking at the economy though, Lucira did drone back up, but again, going for not as many drones as you might expect off of 3 bases, only 63. Which is pretty good, but it's not completely full saturation. And again, the reason for that is doesn't have gas at his 3rd base yet.
The roaches are being chased off by the Void Rays, and Alicia is already getting those robotics again, so he's going for Immortals, and I want to see what Lucira does this time. He should be aware of what's happening right now, and that there's definitely a threat by those Immortals, so I expect that he will go for a little bit of a different strategy compared to the second game, and maybe get that Spire a little bit earlier. You already mentioned that he lacks gas. He's getting two additional extractors right now, so he will have enough gas to place down a Spire and maybe start to tag for the Hive, go for the Greater Spire later on. So far he's just focusing a little bit on the Roaches, on the Burrow upgrade, +2 attack, which is fine, but he should have a backup plan for the later stage of the game as well.
Yeah, and he has, you're right, he's gotten those 2 extra extractors and he's gotten up to 75 drones, so now he's going to have complete saturation and 6 gas on these 3 bases. Just going to start pumping out a lot of units, and it's going to come down to if he has the right unit composition or not. And he's trying to bust down the rocks to come in the back here. The Spine Crawlers are not complete yet. Alicia moving in for the kill. Some nice force fields go down. He has a lot of sentries, so he can continue to force field.
There is no, there's one observer, and he definitely needs to observe in order to deal with those roaches. He's not in the fight though, therefore Burrow is quite useful, and there's a lot of stuff for Alicia. He tries to end it right now, and Lucira needs to be careful. 160 supply against 142. Burrow being used quite beautiful, but that observer is already on its way, and with the observer in the army, Burrow will be rendered quite useless. Oh, look at that. There's not too many roaches. Molotov, I'm not sure if he's able to hold against that.
This is actually looking really scary for Lucira. He's only producing about 10 roaches right now. That is not enough to deal with this, but he is going to be able to get a good concave here around that army. The Void Ray is doing tons of damage now that the Spore is dead. The Queen's desperately trying to take them out. And if he loses those Queens, the Spore is gone. Those Void Rays will do so much damage to the roaches.
Alicia trying to sneak by his opponents and have defenses and trying to get into the main base, but Lucira is doing such a good job. A minute ago, I just thought that he would be dead, and it still is quite a struggle. Look at that. All those Spine Crawlers are already dead and gone. The Queen's still trying to take the Void Rays out. Void Ray is gone. The second one being attacked by 3 Queens. This is looking not all too bad for Lucira. And Alicia needs to retreat. Wow.
Alicia barely getting pushed back. And I think that Lucira may have done it. Alicia was a little bit timid, and now Lucira has amassed a large group of roaches, up to almost 30. He's moving in for the surround. Zerglings as well is the perfect counter to this army. All the sentries are dead. Alicia cannot force field to save his army, and he might just get overrun here by Lucira, continuing to pump out roaches and Zerglings, overrunning Alicia. Alicia is now 70 supply behind his opponent.
Yeah, when I suggested earlier that he should get a Spire, I didn't actually realize that Alicia was going for an all-out attack and that he was amassing a huge army in order to push his opponent straight away. Alicia is now trying to follow it up with a robotic spray, and Lucira reacted perfectly. He's just trying to get so many roaches now, forcing all those stalkers to retreat, taking them out one by one. That defense was awesome, and there's the GG.
Wow. Alicia defeated by Lucira, and Lucira is now one step closer from getting back into Code S. Yes. And yeah, like you said, I didn't realize it either. I looked back there at the end, and Alicia actually had 8 warp gates, so he was really committed to just an all-out, or rather all-in attack. And
I actually
Lucira barely held it.
That I saw 2 robotics being placed on, but I think he had only 1. So I was on the opinion that he did a similar strategy like on the same map, but suddenly they were like those 2 Void Rays that he still was able to save, and that huge army. And I wouldn't have thought possible that Lucira was actually able to defend it. I mean,
yeah, it looked like Lucira was about to fold actually at one point, and Alicia got a little bit scared and was like, "All right, well I'm gonna hold back and wait for one more warp in," and then like another 10 roaches popped out, and that was kind of like, you know, what tipped it over a little bit towards Lucira, and then it was just a slippery slope, I guess, for Alicia at that point. Once Lucira gained the upper hand without Alicia taking out any economy, he didn't take out the base, he didn't take out any drones, then at that point Lucira was just able to outproduce him.
And those Queens were so important for the defense as well. They were able to take down both of these Void Rays. At some point, Lucira didn't have any anti-air except for the Queens anymore. The Spore Crawlers were already dead. There was only 1 left, and that was far away at the second base. So without the Queens, the Void Rays would have been able to just kill every single roach. So these guys really were quite helpful in that defense.
You're right. Those Queens were actually clutch, because if he hadn't killed off those Void Rays, they would have just sat there above the roaches, charged up, and killed everything. The Void Rays would have done so much damage to the roaches, it would have been silly, and Alicia might have won that game. So actually, in that same vein, maybe a little bit of a mistake for Alicia not to try and target down those Queens a little bit faster. Anyway, but so yeah, Lucira's going to go ahead and take the series and advance. We're going to go for a quick 5-minute break. We'll see you in just a few minutes for some more StarCraft 2 action.